My name is Heather Higgins. I am a leader for the industry and technical services, part of IBM Quantum. The presentation that was just before with VP and Bassett dovetails nicely with this. I am here to talk to you guys about how to accelerate. Accelerate seems to be a theme. Enterprise adoption. And so again, the lens that I will take to this is, moving from science to the boardroom, right? How do we help as an ecosystem, the enterprises and each other, to bring things forward? Okay. All right, I'm going to start with what is a trigger, right, for all of us and for enterprises to really start to think about wading into this area of uncertainty. Imagine the art of the possible, imagining discovering new materials for solar panels that help to clean energy more efficiently. We heard a little bit about that in the last presentation. What if you could improve nitrogen fixation process for creating ammonia-based fertilizer? Better financial models to improve stability, predictability, and growth of world economies. New catalysis to CO2 conversion into hydrocarbons more efficiently, more selectively, or even accurately simulating aircraft parts in minutes as opposed to years. These are all use cases and workflows and quantum possibilities that we've heard. There's hundreds more. The reason that we are all here as an ecosystem and as enterprises trying to partner together in this very nascent industry is because these are big issues that are ahead of us to solve. And quantum provides the opportunity for us to really explore those uncharted territories. And that is always what is at the forefront of enterprises that are trying to make that decision about whether they want to move forward down this journey or not. So that's what we're here to talk about. IBM and all of us and the ecosystem really do see this as a profound computing revolution that will be very disruptive. It'll be disruptive in positive ways and will help us redefine different industries, will help us reimagine the art of the possible. I'm going to skip this for a moment. One of the things that's at the core of everything that we talk about with our partners and with our clients is that, at the end of the day, quantum, working symbiotically with classical computing, will help us really drive the transformation. And I know we talk a lot about quantum advantage, really important. I like to talk about business advantage because I think while we're looking at, quantum advantage and the possibilities that quantum advantage will bring to us, importantly, the way that we need to start to reframe the way that we think, the way that we, need to test things, not think too classically, start to think in entirely new ways, will really yield a lot of opportunities to bring those learnings back into to the classical world. So yes, we're all looking for the quantum advantage. There's a race to the killer apps, but importantly in that journey, enterprises and ourselves collectively will learn to do things in very different ways that open up new doors for opportunity. Ilyas talked earlier in the conference. I've just got his quote up. CEOs of Fortune 500 companies have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They can't afford to play catch-up. It's time to break tradition and educate themselves of what quantum computing can do for them. So that's really the beginning of the journey as an enterprise, really trying to tip their toes into this heavily scientific field to make some of those evaluation decisions about what is the right time, what is the right pace, what is the right depth by which they want to engage with quantum. How do they take those first steps? So let's talk a little bit about the enterprise journey, again, from an enterprise lens. Lots of paths to quantum adoption, many reasons that organizations are going to start, whether it is, looking at that, fault-tolerant era where they're trying to get to, carbon zero by 2050, or whether it's taking those incremental, steps. Some organizations are curious. There's a lot of hype that's out there. What is quantum? Does it matter to me? Others really see it as very innovative. They don't want to be disrupted. They want to be the disruptee. And so a lot of different triggers that will, drive an organization to make decisions about when they want to dip their toe in, how deep they want to jump into the water. And so what I want to talk to you guys about is how we can collectively help them and help each other as we go down that journey. So let's talk a little bit about the journey and the different triggers or the different types of questions that organizations are asking themselves as they start down the early path. So this is a early stage, where there'll be 3, early, middle, late, kinds of questions that enterprises are asking within the organization. I don't know how quantum can benefit my business. Not really quite sure how to start. Do I need to have PhD scientists? Do I need to have chemists? What are the resources that I need? How do I access quantum technology? Is this real, or is that a lot of hype, right? I've been burned maybe by past emerging technologies, and so, how do I know that this isn't going to be another one of those things that I'm going to jump in and then have those regrets? As organizations go a little bit further, they have different kinds of questions that they ask. They're asking, what are the people and skills that I need to be quantum ready? We heard about quantum ready at various parts throughout the conference, and I'll put up a slide that shows how IBM thinks about what quantum readiness means. How much is it going to cost? What's my time to value, right? That's a question that is very pervasive actually at all stages. What are the impacts? So many of these organizations are investing in digital transformation, right? The pandemic triggered a lot of investment to make sure that their supply chains are more resilient, to make sure that there's more agility. How are those investments that I'm making today for today's survival going to be impacted as quantum computing comes to the forefront in an area where I can actually put it to productive use? Later stages, I need more access. That's what we all hope. I need more access. I want to drive more value. If I want to really be differentiation, if I want to really be, the disruptor in the industry, do I need to and how do I develop proprietary algorithms? How do I increase my speed for hybrid runtimes? Is the cloud going to be the way that I access all of these things? So a lot of decisions as companies start to think about, why do I want to start going down the path and investing in quantum? How do I start making those steps? And what are those workflows? Workflows that we haven't even imagined today, right? So taking just the use case and understanding when you decompose it, what those quantum feasible opportunities are, then cascade that into what the workflow is and start to reimagine. So, Quantum Accelerator, time to get started. Dario, our research leader in IBM, a quote from him sums up, very well this balance between, really being excited yet cautious, but also understanding that over the past few years, technology, we've seen it throughout the conference, not only IBM's but the ecosystem, is advancing faster than many of us may have thought. So the technology is coming in faster. Organizations, we're seeing more and more of them, not just in the research side of the house, but in the IT department where they are really looking at evaluating technologies in terms of what they can do to grab business value, and even on the commercial side of IT. The roadmaps are coming in. And organizations really need to start thinking about getting quantum ready. At IBM, we've heard quantum ready, in the last presentation and in others. It really is a continuously evolving state, and it's going to be different for all organizations. So within IBM, we've looked at about 13 different capabilities: strategy, operations, technology, all the different things that need to be considered as you start to think about quantum in a production-ready state becoming available. So do you have the ability to scan out into the marketplace to understand what your competitors in the industry are doing? Can you make sure that you can identify your strategy team, the threats that will come from niche quantum players, from other organizations that might be coming into your industry? From a technology perspective, a lot of that's clear. You're going to have workflows that might be boosted or enhanced, with quantum over time. And as you look further out, again, things that we haven't even thought about today, workflows will be reimagined. So what does that mean in terms of what your IT architecture is? What are the things that you might need to do for state-of-the-art AI? What do you need to do with your cloud infrastructure? How are you going to go access? How do you need to move your data around your thing? So when we talk about quantum readiness, it really is the adoption of enabling technology. It's the thought through in terms of your organizational skill set. Do you want to start building a COE? Are you going to embed some of your skills elsewhere in your organization? So when we talk about quantum readiness, it's continually evolving. And it's also going to be very different from one organization to the next organization based on what their strategic capabilities are, based on what their go-to-market and what their appetite for risk is. So when we talk about quantum readiness, again, a very internal process, but really important to make sure that you're checking all the different parts of the organization that will be touched by quantum. This is a I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is a abstract of IBM's development roadmap. We've seen a lot of roadmaps out there from, other organizations. The point being on this slide is really around looking at the roadmaps that are out there and abstracting as we start to mature the technology, can scale the technology, unlock new capabilities, to put that enterprise lens on, to look at what is the impact of what those new capabilities are going to bring us. What does that mean in terms of what I can do, in the business? So here we have, in 2019, running quantum circuits on IBM Cloud so that we can start to do demonstrations and prototypes of quantum, into, 2021, right? We've got the ability to run quantum applications 100x faster on the IBM Cloud. That means that a business is going to be able to work through simulations at a much faster pace and do things that they couldn't do before. Again, start to look at the roadmaps that are out there and look at what the business implications are. Professor at Harvard University, this is an important one. If anything slows down the quantum decade, it's going to be it's unlikely to be the technology. I think we can all stand behind that. The technology, the pace and rate is moving really fast. But where it's going to be is the people, right? If you look back at AI, what is one of the constraints to growth? It's really about the talent pools that you have. And for quantum, if you look at where we are in the nascency of the industry, and you start to look at the PhD chemists, the PhD physicists, the folks that can really understand and go deep in quantum, it's a very scarce global pool. There's not enough. Certainly IBM is working on frictionless, right, so that you can open up the pool of folks that will understand quantum and to be able to figure out what it is that you can do. But it's still people are going to be critical in terms of being able to identify and skill them up. If you look at what Gartner published, January of this year, so just about a year ago, while skills are so important from an enterprise perspective, again, we're very early in the industry, only 6% of organizations that they surveyed felt that they had good to excellent skills that would be necessary, they say, to implement and deliver on quantum, but really the first steps are to do that exploration, to do that experimentation, to be able to understand what those feasible opportunities are, to be able to understand what is the time to value and how does that fit within your strategic objectives. So again, skills are really important, not enough out there. And so, IBM has been doing a lot of work, as have others, to really try to skill up, a workforce with universities, with academia, with challenges that are out there. So let's talk about Quantum Accelerator. I see Accelerator all over the place, through every hall that we're going through things that, clients are talking about, our partner ecosystems are talking about, is how do we start to, accelerate adoption of quantum for whoever that target is. What I have up here is a visual. You probably won't be able to read all of it, but this is an offering that IBM has that is really intended to align different individuals within an enterprise around a mission and a journey to quantum. And so we have three major parts of it. There's business readiness, there is education and technical skill building, and then of course, premium access. So I said I was leading our industry and technical services group within IBM. I would say one of the things that is fundamental to our mission is to work side by side with clients, work from the C-suite, work with the research teams, work with the technology teams, but importantly, make sure that we are working with the enterprise to help them build their capabilities with the mission of self-sufficiency. Right? We're not trying to come in to do work. We want them to be self-sufficient. So we have a methodology here where we, up at the top, you can see the loops. When we talk about business readiness, we're talking about defining organizations' compelling use cases. Again, that's going to be very different, organization to organization, based on what their strategic priorities are. We help them to set priorities to capture new opportunities and to really de-risk the opportunity that they get disrupted in the industry or caught flat-footed when quantum maturity arrives. Within business readiness, again, the first part is helping them define use case strategy prioritization, really looking at doing a readiness assessment. I said earlier, we have 13 capabilities that we have identified that are very meaningful when you start to think about how an organization is going to intercept the value of quantum, again, throughout the organization, not just in the IT or the research groups. And then based on that readiness assessment, there are things that will be identified that organizations can do today that have nothing to do with quantum, right? Where they can start looking at how do they prepare their organization for quantum, whether it's cloud, whether it's AI, whether it's their infrastructure, how they organize their data, how they start to think about problems differently. How do they start to, think about this, heterogeneous environment? And then at the very end, we work with them as they identify a use case and really try to get their technical teams hands-on, building early prototypes, building proof of technology. Important for both the learning aspect, but equally important for a business planning aspect so that they can really start to get tangible understanding of how things are going to be, potentially different. You can't do any of that unless you start to build a foundation of understanding within the organization. And so when we talk about educating and skill building, we really talk about the gamut, right? From, C-suite or business professionals that are not likely to have a STEM background. How do you start to get them fluent, is what we call it, fluent in quantum, understanding what quantum computing is, understanding what it's not, and understanding why it should matter to them. What are the kinds of things, the doors that quantum will open up? So we have some business foundation education where we really very, very consumable, layman's terms, and also start to work with prototypes that we can use to pull their data in that they can really start to use as an internal selling tool so that you can see how it is that we work with classical today to solve a problem, how we see that in the future when it's classical and quantum so that you can see which parts are done classically, which parts might get boosted from quantum, and again, making quantum computing very tangible for their executive audience. The other part that we do is technical foundations training, really important. There's a lot of training out there. There's lots of opportunities, really getting folks versed on, the fundamental principles of quantum computing and Qiskit. How do you get them proficient in the use of Qiskit? And then taking it a step further, really with their technical teams diving down into specific algorithms that are going to be important for the types of use cases that they're interested in. So again, very immersive experience covering business fluency to purposeful look at different use cases and giving them the skills that they're going to need to do the exploration, the experimentation, and closing the loop with the business side of the house in terms of the implications of that and how they need to think about their adoption roadmap, not just from a quantum perspective, but from an overall IT architecture perspective. And then you can see down at the bottom, the green line, which is all about getting the right folks hands-on so that they can experiment, especially as new capabilities are coming out. And we've hit that barrier, it moved past that barrier where we can now start to do things and experiment with things that we can't simulate classically. So we're entering into this, a whole new area here. I said before, no two clients are the same, right? We can all talk about, the hundreds of use cases that are out there. I shared some of them. It's going to be different for every organization. We work with organizations, I'm sure each of you work with organizations that are very diverse in their maturity, those that are deeply skilled, that have already built research teams, that are, doing, research, as you heard from some of the clients here, to, C-suite executives who haven't made the decision. They don't have in-house skills. In fact, when they make the decision and they want to, tiptoe, into this world of uncertainty, they're not sure where to start. What is the kind of team that I need? Can I have some of my data scientists? What enables a data scientist to be able to have the aptitude to accelerate up the learning curve? So the maturity level of where organizations are very different. The types of, anchors within an organization are also very different, right? Organizations that are, centric in the initial stages of quantum around research are going to have, very different needs up front than those who are attacking it from a business perspective in terms of a purposeful agenda. And so what you can see here is we have a single offering that is working to align the different parts of an organization around their strategy for quantum and an adoption roadmap. We also below the line have different activities that are structured to work together to move and progress them down their path, again with purpose. It's not let's do a use case that's not connected with the broader vision, that's not connected to their strategy, that doesn't give them information and business planning insights that they can use today. So this is one example of some of the activities that sit beneath, but we also have multiple pathways, right? We have pathways depending on the maturity of the organization. We also have pathways that will lead them down a different path based on whether this is an IT-driven IT-driven initiative, whether it's a research-driven initiative, or whether it is really starting with the business. We're finding that the predominance now of enterprises that are coming have already made a decision to dip into quantum, but they need to look at what that looks like in the broader organization. And we're starting to see a lot more organizations that are really starting from an emerging technology perspective. A few sprinkled in that are really starting from a business. But again, different pathways. When an organization goes through their journey and they build their strategy, what their vision is, they have some use cases, they've built the skill, and they have achieved what we call quantum readiness at some point in their journey. These are the benefits that we think that come out of that journey. We do believe that they can capitalize on windows of opportunity. They can be the disruptor and not the disrupted in terms of where the industry is going. We do believe that they can grow their talent faster. They can go out and grab some of the talent that's currently there, and they can have the runway to train the talent so that, again, they're ready to intercept the value of quantum when quantum is there. We also know, again, going back to the pandemic, there's a lot of digital transformation. There's a lot of investment that is happening in organizations. And so as they're making those investments, even having an eye to where quantum might be and being able to understand the implications of what the changes are going to be in the future, enable them to future-proof their investment. Start proof of concept development in advance of quantum. It takes time. Skill building takes time. Understanding what's going to, some things aren't going to work, right? You're going to do experiment and exploration, and what we think is going to happen might not happen. Technology is going to change, and so really helping them go down the path with proof of concept so that there are tangible things. And understanding, importantly, there hasn't been a lot of talk throughout the conference of workflows. We talk a lot about use cases. It's really important to understand the use cases, what your business purpose is, but really to think about that in the context of a workflow. Within your workflow, what are the quantum addressable opportunities? Let's go test those. And then also it leads you to, how do I reimagine an entirely different workflow? So again, we have a quantum accelerator journey that will walk folks through the various stages. Some of you might have seen already. We did some internal work and some work out there with the broader partner ecosystem outside of IBM. Many of our partners and clients participated in it to the Quantum Decade. We actually have books that are right outside as you leave of the Quantum Decade. It's a coffee table book. Let me see if I can. It's this. You'll see it. It's pretty big, but it will fit into your luggage if you're checking it. I encourage each of you to grab a copy of it. It really provides a very good picture of how we see the future, what we see the future of computing, how quantum is going to, fit into AI and cloud-based world. Take a look at it, read it. There's a lot of examples of what pioneers are doing in the industry. And then in the back, there's also some examples of industry use cases. Now, those will change. There's no silver bullet. There's no, immediate time to value, but really thinking about all the different possibilities and internalizing it within the organization and thinking, again, as we try to make the shift from science over to the business side of the house, how can we help each other and how can we help enterprises that are trying to make that journey a journey that is, what do we call it, a no-risk investment, right? So they're capturing value, learning about quantum, but also learning some things that they can take back to drive business value today. So I'm going to pause. See if there's any questions. I think we've got about 4 minutes left, and I already see a question. Go ahead. I think companies are coming with all different sorts of motivation. So I think there are, folks that are, looking at very long-term, opportunities to really change the way that they're doing things and make, intractable problems tractable. I also think that there are, at the other end of the spectrum, a lot of organizations that are hearing the buzz and the hype around quantum. They don't have a specific, business purpose, but they hear all of this stuff and they see pioneers that are going out there and they're wondering, what do I need to do, right? So again, it's at all ends of the spectrum. I think if you go back a couple of years, there's been a lot of science and there's a lot of momentum from an academia perspective, a lot of knowledge that's out there. But you had a lot of, with the exception of some pioneering organizations that we've all heard from, over the last 3 days, the vast majority of enterprises are sitting on the peripheral, not sure if quantum is coming, if it's not sure that they want to dip in, they don't know what their different risks appetite. So my point was more, there's a lot of different flavors of organizations that are coming, and I think we need to meet clients where they are and introduce them to quantum and be very transparent in what quantum can and can't do. There's a lot of education that's required. Yep. Other questions, comments? We have contact information right there. So as I said, I am leading the industry and technical services team. We actually have a few of our folks here. We've got Joe Bros, who came into IBM and is giving us some external perspective, which is always really good, just like these conferences do. And then we are organized by groups of industries, right? So that we have expertise in terms of not just the quantum, but the intersection of folks that understand the client's business. So we have Ahmed, who is here, who leads quite a few of our industries. He's got industry consultants that cover consumer, retail, travel, transportation, automotive, aerospace, and electronics. We've got Bob Parney somewhere here. In the back, waving in the back. Bob is covering chemicals and petroleum. And then, of course, we've got, banking, financial markets, insurance. We have energy, utilities, media, telco. We really cover basically all the industries that are out there. And we are seeing, different levels of maturity, different reasons for clients, starting to think about quantum. They have teams of folks that have computational scientists, expertise in given algorithms, again, that can work side by side with companies with a mission to help them build capabilities, right? We're not, not as focused on, doing work and sharing results. We want everyone to join in and get very hands-on so that they can take that expertise and they can build it into their capabilities for the future. And then we have some of our business development folks as well who are here, who some of you may, already be working with. But I'll close there because I think we're at time. Thank you, troopers, again. Not easy. I think there's one or two more closing sessions. But appreciate your time and for showing up.